Unit A10, analyzing some more documents. This one is going to be coming from Luther C. Wendell, a black New Yorker describes life in a CCC camp. So before we even get to that, CCC camp, what is that standing for?
Civilian Conservation Corps.
So that would have to go to,
One of many of the FDR's New Deal programs.
so now we're in the Depression.
So we're somewhere in the Great Depression. He isn't giving us the year. Have to do a little bit of analysis there to figure out what we're talking about, putting it into context for everybody. So we are at some point during the Great Depression.
And of course, his New Deal programs, relief, recovery, reform.
Yes.
CCC camp, when you're looking at the Civilian Conservation Corps, generally speaking, geared towards young men between the ages of 18 to 26 or whatever.
You're getting paid to plant trees, to build parks.
Great outdoor job.
Absolutely.
A great outdoor job.
I would love it.
This is actually a lot of the things, a lot of the work that they did, particularly out west, was fighting these wildfires.
Mm-hmm.
So here you had your first, wildland firefighters from this particular time period, which was actually pretty cool. Again, when you're looking at the target group between the ages of 18 and 25, single men mostly who are going to be moving around. And, the other part of that as well is that if you have young men who are unemployed, who are now employed, they're less likely to go to a life of crime.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what we got here. So, during the 2 years of its previous existence, I had heard many conflicting reports concerning the Civilian Conservation Corps. President Roosevelt's pet project. Some said that the colored got all the leftovers. Others said that everything was all right. But my brother, who is a World War veteran, advised me emphatically I wouldn't be in anything connected with the Army. So it was with some apprehension that I was accepted for enrollment and should report the following Monday to the U.S. Army authorities for further registration. So there I was, on a bus, bound for Camp Dix, New Jersey. New Jersey, kind of local.
Okay.
FDR, a New York guy.
Mm-hmm.
Pet project, sure, they can kind of go hand in hand.
Brother was a World War veteran, so it has to be World War One, because
Yep.
we're in the Depression, it's not World War Two.
Now we have to consider the person writing this, who's describing it, this person is African American.
Mm-hmm. He said his brother would be very apprehensive with trusting the Army. Thinking back to World War One, African American soldiers were not necessarily welcomed into the Army, weren't allowed to fight alongside the white soldiers.
You have segregation taking place,
The
of course.
Harlem Hellfighters were kind of like, yeah, you go fight with the French. We don't want to fight with you.
French loved them.
Yeah, absolutely.
French people loved them as
Because
well. Yeah.
So this guy doesn't know what to expect. His brother's saying, yeah, be very cautious, but, this is a program that is the President of the United States program.
And now we have, some familiar, I guess you could say, negative feelings when you're talking about the military, if you're talking about him, because now you're going to Camp Dix, New Jersey. Still around, slept on that ground many a times. All right, anything else we need to answer here?
No.
Okay, so let's move on with this one, right? We reached Camp Dix about 7:30 that evening. And here it was that Mr. Jim Crow first definitely put in his appearance.
Oh, okay.
I was going to stop too.
Yeah,
So now we kind of get what he was talking about.
Yeah, and he's not talking about like a commanding officer named Jim Crow.
Right.
He's talking about segregation. Talking about the Jim Crow laws of the South. Although we're in Jersey, he's talking about that the bias towards the prejudice against African Americans is going to be seen.
Okay, so since he's talking about that, and let's stop there. Let's go back here. Apprehension, Jim Crow. What might we be reading next? What is he probably going to be describing next then?
My guess, because I haven't even looked at the rest of this document.
Yeah.
This is new to me.
Yep.
My guess is going to be something about having to go sit somewhere else, sleep somewhere else, use a different locker room or bathroom.
And of course, if he's bringing this up, this negative experience again, Jim Crow, you're probably anticipating that since he's an African American, he's not going to be welcomed with open arms or treated fairly. So, there we go. Jim Crow is making his appearance. We're going to pick it up right here. When my record was taken at Pier I, a C was placed on it. When the bus loads were made up at Whitehall Street, an officer reported as follows: 35, 8 colored, but until now, there had been no distinction made. But before we left the bus, the officer shouted emphatically, "Colored boys fall out in the rear." The colored from several buses were herded together and stood in line until after the white boys had been registered and taken to their tents. This seemed to be the established order of procedure at Camp Dix. So, I guess our guess was right on the button there. The C that was put on his record was standing for colored.
And it was used to segregate them. They got the last seat on the bus, generally in the back of the bus, and it looks like they're also going to get the last choice of sleeping quarters.
How about when it came to eating? Now again, we're at a military base, something that is not addressed there, but again, you're probably the worst sleeping quarters. You're looking at a military base, probably the pristine, nice barracks or rooms are going to be much nicer. Those are going to go to the whites.
The latrine was probably segregated as well.
Exactly. So he ends off here, this separation of the colored from the whites was completely and rigidly maintained at this camp. Wow. So
So here's a guy trying to help his country, make an honest living, through the CCC, help get us through and out of this Great Depression. And because of the color of his skin, the United States Army is going to
stick to the segregation.
Yep.
There's so many, when you're looking at the Great Depression, is crisis an appropriate word to put to? I mean, we're definitely not in a life or death situation as we know are familiar with the word crisis, but we're definitely in a situation where you could probably there's certain things that you probably don't need to worry about anymore, but yet, I mean, it definitely
or
speaks
you
to
forget
how,
about, because the way that history is taught, it's like, let's teach imperialism.
Right.
Let's teach World War I. Let's teach the Great Depression. And forgetting that interwoven throughout this was the African American experience in this country. From the end of slavery and the Civil War, really go from 1619 and their first arrival here.
Right.
It's been interwoven as part of the fabric of this country. And it kind of gets lost in that when you're teaching it. That, there was the CCC and this is what it did. Stop.
Yeah.
But this is what it was like to live the CCC for African Americans.
There was an interesting other source that I found that connects to this.
Okay.
So, again, if you were going, all right, if you were looking at this source and going, it couldn't have been that bad. Well, again, as we mentioned a lot of times, look for more
corroborating evidence.
Looking for more supporting evidence or evidence that's going to disprove it. So let's look at this one. Of course, I made some modifications. This way it's easy for us to read and use it as an activity. But this is going to be to the Honorable Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States, Washington, D.C. Dear Mr. President. Okay, so right now we're in a letter. So here we go. Would you please direct the people in charge of the relief work in Georgia to issue the provisions and other supplies to our suffering colored people? I'm sorry to worry you with this, Mr. President, but hard as it is to believe the relief officials here are using up most everything that you send for them, self and their friends. Now we're in a different region. Now we're
down south.
Now we're down south. So we started off in Jersey in their other document. Now we're down south. So he's writing to the president. And, we haven't identified who this person is, but I mean, we could probably imagine that this individual is African American.
Part of the FDR's New Deal program we said in before Relief, Recovery, Reform. So relief is being sent probably in the form of money, food, clothing, who knows. And it appears that this person is asking the president, hey, it looks like the people who are in charge of giving out the relief are taking care of their friends and family first.
Again, we're in a depression, so there's not an abundant amount of supplies and resources.
Right. The fact that he says our suffering colored people and then pivots to the relief officials, I'm making the assumption that the relief officials are white. And are either intentionally withholding support of the minority, or doing it just because they're going to help their friends first and give them the pick of the litter and then send the rest off.
Let's see what else this man has to say. They give out the relief supplies here on Wednesday of this week and give us black folks, each one, nothing but a few cans of pickled meat, and to white folks they give blankets, bolts of cloth, and things like that.
All right, so we're now looking at a significant disparity in what is being distributed to the white folks of Georgia and the African Americans.
Get an idea how they're living as well, in terms of, what you need, what's coming in. Definitely speaks to how I guess, enthusiastic or eager you're going to be, or energetic when it comes to working.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, if you get a good night's sleep, you know, work is much easier. If you're being treated well and you eat well, you know, everything's going to be going well. However, with them, not so the case. All right, so let's go here. Please help us, Mr. President, because we can't help ourselves, and we know you are the president and a good Christian man. We are praying for you. Yours truly. This is the part that gets me. Can't sign my name, Mr. President. They will beat me up and run me away from here, and this is my home. So this is my home. This guy grew up in Georgia. You know, what did he probably see growing up?
Probably the son of a sharecropper.
Yeah, that's the other thing
You
too.
know, probably the son of a sharecropper.
Something else we'd have to look for, but you know, that's probably a safe assumption
You know,
right there.
and we know that
Yep.
we quick review on sharecropping. It was deliberately set up to keep these freedmen locked in a cycle of poverty so they could never advance in society.
And that's not just a topic
So
for
that-
Reconstruction.
yeah,
That continued
right.
into the
So
1900s.
that's the why, because
Yeah.
we can't help ourselves. Trust me, this guy wants to help himself. He wants to help his own family, but because his parents got locked into a cycle of poverty, he's probably locked, and all of their debts are now
Yeah.
passed on to him.
And again, throughout our curriculum, we've looked at people who've written to the president, even Eleanor Roosevelt. You know, a lot of people reached out to her particular children. I know we covered something on that. You know, when you're talking about someone who's writing to the president at this point in time, this is not like your first option. There's a thought process that goes into this. There's, you know, maybe this is like your last resort. You know,
Yeah.
there's a Hail Mary pass,
And the
if you
fact
will.
that he doesn't want to sign his name,
Right.
because it's like, if this letter falls into somebody's hands and they
Sure.
know it's me, Kevin Kogan, who's writing it, they're going to come and they're going to beat me up and drive me away.
Yep.
Because really what I'm doing, I'm exposing corruption. This
Yeah.
is definitely corruption amongst these officials in the relief program, whatever relief program this is.
Yep.
You know, and that old snitches get stitches.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of always like, I'm not signing my name because I got
Right.
to protect myself and my family.
Yeah. This is a good website. I actually got it from here.
Oh, I've seen this
The
before.
Living
Yep.
New Deal, great
Yep.
one.
Really good.
We've used this for other things when it comes to the New Deal,
Yes.
with relief, recovery, and reform. But good website. Just wanted to
Yeah, if students
them
were
props for-
ever had to write some sort of
Good.
enduring issue essay
Sure.
on the New Deal,
This
great
will be your
website to
one-stop
visit.
shopping.
Yep.
All right, cool. Anything else we need?
Nope.
All right. Thanks for watching.